In the second reading, we heard 1,000 years are like one day before God, and one day is like 1,000 years with God. It's a remarkable thing to think about. We live in time. God does not. He lives in eternity. And if you can wrap your mind around that, good, God bless you. During the pandemic quarantine, the first one, God forbid we may have another one, in March, I said to myself, you're going to go crazy if you don't do something constructive. So I pulled out and chronicled all of the 16-millimeter family films. And we had some of them still, but we had before this, we had some of it transferred onto cassette tapes. And then we had some of them put onto, DVDs, right? Now, there were tons of scrapbooks of pictures in our family. And I decided to yank them all out of those albums, and started chronicle them. Time kind of passed easy for me because it was quite a process. And a lot of people will say, I got to do that, I got to do that. I said, well, here, this is it for me. I can do this now. And of course, I was with my mother, and we would go down memory lane. And then I sent it away, all of it, to a company. And they put it on, all of it, on this. I couldn't believe it. There were like 750 photos, and there were, about a dozen DVDs, and the cassettes, and then the 16. It's all. So I wanted to make sure I understood the contract, and I read it again. But then I called. I said, "Everything is on this." Well, they had put it on DVDs, and then a cousin of mine then said, because they don't do this, he put it all on this. It's unbelievable, really, when you think about it. And it was our whole story right there as a family, going back to my grandparents. And they were all the black and white pictures, right? And then we got some color, and then it progressed. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because when I looked at the readings, I said 1,000 years are like one day. Here's a whole story here of about 100 years right here for our family. And it's all in this one thing here. And I had just a hint. This is what I think St. Peter is saying to us. We have this span of years. For us, it's our whole life. It's everything that matters. And it can be encapsulated quickly now by technology, but spiritually, it's what St. Peter was trying to tell us. Suddenly, at the end of our life, we bring it all, and maybe I'll bring this along, I don't know. But bring it to him, and he'll say, what did you do? And I'll say, well, do you have a laptop? I can just put this in here. Of course, it's facetious, but it's sobering. It's beautiful. It's a little, not scary, but it's sobering. And that's exactly what St. John the Baptist in the Gospel was trying to say as he was going to introduce Christ, fully grown, to begin his earthly ministry. Wake up. He's about to show up. The one we've been waiting for. Be sober. Realize what's in your hands, your life. Turn to God, etc., etc., etc. Of course, in this, as well as in our own lives and memories, there is a lot of difficulty and sadness, sin. Those are not usually recorded. But in going through them, in between those years and decades, people were beginning to disappear because of the separation of death. And then there were people who were difficult. And there were people that, God help us, weren't, in the past, they weren't talking to each other, even to the day that they died. Those are the stories that are in between, and that my mother was very busy chronicling for me, but I had heard it as it was happening. So there's sin and there's beauty in our lives. As some we can recall like this, some of it we can recall in here because we hold on to some of the hurts and the separations, the losses that happen. And it all, as St. Peter says, it all comes down to like the blink of an eye. Here we are, with all of our story. And if anybody thinks this is morbid, it's not meant to be morbid. It's meant to be, as St. Peter says, sobering, so that we can rise above the beauty and the sentimentality of what's coming up in 2 weeks, another Christmas in our life, very different than even last Christmas because this thing hadn't hit yet. So it can be sobering. And it can be a time of us looking differently, not only about what's happened, but also about our lives. Sobering in the sense of, look how patient God has been with me or with us. Look how beautiful he has been for me or for us. And pictures and whatnot help us to remember that. So it's a sacred time. Today, this year, I think it can be sober and sacred at the same time. And because we do have who we have in our lives, we can join with them and appreciate it yet on another level. Not just the joy of it that can go away, but the memory of appreciating it from a different sense of things. So that's what St. John the Baptist was trying to say to people. He's coming. Open your hearts and your minds to him. And that's what Advent is. It's a very quick season, but it's meant to tell us, to remind us, that life itself is very quick. As the Psalm says, even if we live 100 years, it's a blink of the eye up against eternity. But the eternity is just not forever, but it's forever in total communion with God and with these people that we will recognize. We believe that because we will recognize each other's soul that does not die at death. And we will relive, and they will relive with us, all pointing to the mercy and the beauty of God that allows us to be able to see it on a totally different and complete level. When we can touch that or taste that in a sense, be aware of it, it's a moment of really grace. We believe that that happens also at Holy Communion. God touches us materially so that we can be in communion with him and have a sense, just for the moment, of what eternity will be like. That's the great promise of the baby at Bethlehem. So let us continue on our path this Advent, continue in our life wherever we are, be always aware, and to be aware of the things that a lot of times we can put to the side, not ungratefully, but this Advent really invites us to have that beautiful, sobering experience that God will take care of everything, and he will wrap it up in all one day that will be eternal with him in heaven. May God bless you all.